What if you never had to reply to your emails again? What if an AI could read your emails, understand what you mean, log into your systems, do the work, and send the response all by itself? And that too with no templates, no fixed workflows, and then no manual effort. And this is not an automation, this is an AI agent. And in this course, you're not just going to learn the theory, you're going to build these agents using UiPath, a platform where you can build intelligent agents, deploy them into systems, and then run them at scale. Companies are already using this to automate their entire departments, to replace their repetitive work, and then scale their operations without any new hiring. And by end of this course, you're going to understand what exactly the agentic automation means, and you're going to build your own agent from scratch. Okay, let's start with what we are going to cover in this session. In module 1, we will begin with an introduction to AI agents. First, we will understand the problem with existing automation technologies. Traditional automation works well when everything is structured and predictable, but in real business scenarios, things are often messy, things will be changing, and they might require decision making. So, because of these limitations, we will see why there was a need to introduce a new concept called agentic automation, something that can handle uncertainty. Then we will move into how enterprises are evolving from basic automation where bots just follow rules to this new agentic approach where systems can think, decide, and act more intelligently. After that, we will simplify what AI agents actually are in very easy terms. I'll use a real world analogy so it's clear and relatable and not completely technical. Next, we will explore the different types of agents available in UiPath. UiPath is one of the top platform in agentic automation currently. Next, we will explore different types of agents available in UiPath, such as Studio Web Agents, coded agents, and understand where each one fits. And finally, we will see a live demonstration where you can observe an AI agent in action. So you don't just understand the concept, but actually see how it works. To summarize, by the end of this module, you will clearly understand the problem, the need for agents, and how they are applied in real enterprise scenarios. So, why there was a need to introduce a new concept called agentic? What was the existing problem? And what is this agentic automation solving? So, basically, why agentic automation? Let's take a simple scenario. Every day, we spend hours replying to emails, downloading reports, and moving data between systems, right? So, this can be our best example. We spend hours replying to emails, download reports, moving data between systems. So these are regular tasks in most of the organizations. And so we currently have a technology to automate this stuff. So since these are very repetitive, we have something called robotic process automation, RPA, or you can simply call it as automation, software automation. So we have this technology to automate this stuff and then use the human brain to something really interesting, right? So this will be our, let's say, this will be the use case, or this will be the problem and which is already been solved by RPA, right? And most of this work doesn't need intelligence, right? So these are simply straightforward steps. So there is no need of extra intelligence. It just needs execution. RPA, let's take UiPath as a tool. So we have specific activities to download emails or to read emails or to download attachments from those emails. And then these attachments can be read with read PDF text activity. Again, there are some certain activities to read PDFs. And from this PDF, using regular expressions, you can extract the key information and then use that key information to move between systems. It can be added into SAP or any other ERP system, right? So that's how we solved this case. So solution will be RPA, right? And this would, what RPA do, it will follow steps, it will save time, and it will reduce manual work. So far it's clear, right? But so here we have a real problem. So what happens if email format changes? And if there is a decision needed, let's say it should not download every attachment, understand the email first, and from the email it should get an idea like this is from specific domain or specific this is from specific department. Only then download the attachment, and rest of them it should ignore. So if there is a decision needed, and if data is incomplete, someone just wrote partial 2 to 3 lines and then left rest of them, and then with that partial 2 to 3 lines you need to understand the email and then proceed accordingly. So in these cases, what happens, the standard RPA, which is rule based, will fail, right? Because it cannot think. So there is no brain for RPA. So RPA is just like it will follow the steps that you defined. That's it. It cannot use its brain. So now this was the problem. How do we solve it? To solve this problem, there was a concept introduced called agentic AI. So now with AI, systems can understand language and the intent. Can understand by simply with simple text in the email, it can understand its intent, and it can also understand the language. So unlike traditional RPA, instead of rules, it can understand what it is doing. In simple words, an AI agent is a system that can understand a goal, decide what to do by itself, and take actions. So let's go with the problem we had. So let's say if the format changes, since we are not defining any format, we are just telling the agent, and there is AI with the agent where it can understand the changes in format. And if there is a decision needed, it will understand where the decision is needed, and then accordingly it will add the human, or it can take the decision by itself. And if the data is incomplete, with the partial information, if a human can understand, similar way an AI agent also can understand, because there is an LLM behind it, and then LLM can understand massive data, right? So that's why there is a concept called agentic AI introduced. In simple words, this is what an AI agent means. Now let's try to understand AI agents little in depth. So as we saw in the before example, so we had a situation where RPA, robotic process automation, fails, and then there was a need to introduce agentic to solve a certain kind of problem, right? So we could simply call it as next level of automation, right? And when I say, so as I mentioned before, I told agents can think, right? And how is this happening? Using AI. What exactly, in which AI technology? We have something called, I think everyone knows, LLMs, right? So agents use LLMs, ML, and other automation tools to carry out a certain task. These can work in complex environments. And how is that? Since it is been using LLMs. LLM is nothing but large language model. So a model which is been trained with enormous amount of data. So it basically knows every situation. So with that capacity or with that technology, it can understand if there is a change in environment. Simple, right? It can think and accordingly it can act. These are different from RPA robots, as I mentioned earlier, and these are best for unstructured workflows where data is messy, exceptions happen often, because in RPA what we do, we define every rule, right? If something breaks, if something, if a situation happened apart from these rules, it there will be an exception. So to summarize this in simple words, we could say agents don't just follow instructions, they understand, decide, and adapt. These are the main concepts behind AI agents to simply understand what it is. Okay. To summarize, an AI agent can understand, decide, and adapt. Right. So how it can understand? Because there is a brain called LLM, large language model. With using that LLM model's brain, it can actually understand. How it is deciding. So again, with the model, it can decide what to do next, and how it will carry those decided steps using tools. So we give tools as a hand to agent. So using these tools, it will perform the actions. So how is it adapting to the environment? Let's say you're deploying an agent in medical scenarios, it has to adapt to medical related things, right? So how is it adapting those medical related scenarios? Using context. So we give context to agent to understand what is the environment and then on which it has to work on. To understand it even more better, so here's a quick table that compares robots versus agents. So robots are nothing but robotic process automation robots and agents, right? So nature. So agents are probabilistic and adaptive. Since there are no rules defined, it will be probabilistic and adaptive. But RPA is deterministic and then rule based. And skills, it can plan, it can take decisions by itself, and then it can understand natural language. But RPA, it is structured execution. Since the rules are already predefined, the efficiency will be high because it will just repeat the same steps how many times as you need, right? And reliability, it will not change, right? And agents are best for unstructured tasks and ambiguous environments, right? So where there is no fixed format, as we saw in our above emails example. In RPA case, where tasks are repetitive and structured, so in that case you could go for RPA. Agents can usually be triggered by user requests or system events, and for RPA you can actually define a schedule or you can define a trigger, right? Collaboration. So agents, they can work with users, robots, and other agents, where we call it as multi-agent scenario. We'll understand it in future. RPA, they work independently and they can work under an agent direction. So with with agents, you can give RPA as a tool. Now we understood what are AI agents. We understood agents need, and now let's see what businesses can do with these AI agents. Right. So business, they mix AI plus RPA. With existing RPA flows, they can mix AI using this agentic automation or agentic AI. They could automate, across systems like CRM, ERP, etc. Let's take a simple example of SAP. So let's say there is an email. The robot has to read that email, understand a few fields from that email, like let's say invoice number or part number or something, and based on this understanding, it should extract those fields and then input that fields into SAP. So in this case, this understanding part where a traditional RPA cannot do, so there you can add an agent, and rest of the things can still be carried out by a RPA or a robot. So basically, agentic automation means AI agents, robots, and humans working together intelligently. Let's call it this, intelligently to automate end-to-end business processes. So, as I explained in the previous example, where there is a need to understand email, and then from this understanding, adapt fields and then use those fields to enter in SAP, right? In this case, if there is no agentic automation, what could happen? So for the first part, some human has to understand the email and then provide those fields to automation. Then the rest of the part will be completed, which is not an end-to-end business process, right? So now with agentic automation, you could automate that part as well, and then we could call it as, or we could automate end-to-end business process, right? Now that we understand what agentic automation is, the next question is, how do we actually build it, right? To create this kind of smart automation, we need a platform that can bring everything together, right? Agents, robots, and humans. So that's where the UiPath platform comes in, right? It provides all the tools required to build AI agents. It provides tools to design RPA workflows. There are specific tools to connect different systems like CRM or ERP. And the most important, the manage part and then the monitoring part also in one place. So that's why UiPath is one of the top vendor now for agentic automation. It didn't stop there. With components like Maestro, there's a tool from UiPath called Maestro, which will allow you to orchestrate entire process, deciding what the agent should do, where the robot should step in when human input is needed. So in simple words, UiPath is a platform where you can design, build, and run agentic automation in a structured and scalable way. Okay. So now let's understand what are different agent capabilities in UiPath, right? UiPath platform lets you use and manage different types of agents in one single place. You're not limited to just one type. You can choose the best agent for each task. So types of agents, there are system agents, UiPath built agents, coded agents, and external agents. So robots and people, I'm leaving because robots are RPA robots, and people are wherever the human intervention is required, the people come into picture. So I'm leaving these two part. I'm focusing on the agents part. Right. Firstly, system agents. So these are ready-made agents inside your path. For example, autopilot. Autopilot is a conversational agent. You could call it as conversational agent where you could interact, right? And there is something called healing agent. You could Google them. You will get lot of information about healing agent and autopilot. You just use them directly. There is no need to build anything. So that's why these are UiPath system inbuilt system agents. You could call and UiPath built agents. You can create these agents using simple tools like drag and drop, right? There is a tool called Studio Web. There's no heavy coding needed here. So using that Studio Web, you could build these agents. And these are best for business scenarios and quick development. Next, coded agents. So these are extensively for developers. So these are built using full coding by developers. These are created using SDKs and tools like IDEs, Visual Studio IDE. So these are these IDEs, and these are best for complex logic and custom use cases. Right. And at the end, external agents. So agent built in other platforms can also be used in UiPath using these external agents. So you could connect and run them inside UiPath. You could build agents in any other platform, and then you can simply connect that external agent to UiPath and then make use of other UiPath tools. Let's say you have an agent in your own environment, and then you want RPA flows and people to be intervened with your externally created agent. Using this external agents concept, you could simply link that other agent to your existing RPA workflows, and then you can continue. Now we'll have a look on UiPath system agents, like what is autopilot and healing agent, and then we will start building a simple agent using Studio Web. So firstly, autopilot. So autopilot is something that where you can build conversational agents. Let's say you have deployed an agent, you could add that agent to autopilot, and then here you can directly instruct that agent what it needs to do, right? So it will be available in UiPath Assistant, and here you can directly interact with your agent. That's the autopilot one. And regarding healing agent is something that you configure for your RPA processes. So it is mainly used to auto heal when there is a situation that it is mainly used to get auto healed when there is an exception with different selector or your element got changed. At that time, this auto healing will help to fix that select and continue the run. So how do we configure? So you have to go to orchestrator, you have orchestrator, and then under process, you pick any process, you connect it. Then under additional settings, you could enable the healing agent and enable self agent self healing, and this would consume agent units. What will it do is if there is a change in selector of for this process or any UI element, it will auto fix that and then it will continue the rest of the automation. So that's about healing agent. Let's start building a simple agent using UiPath Studio Web, right? So we're going to build a business event research assistant. So it should take city name and number of people as an input, and then it should suggest us the activity or maximum number of people that can do this activity. So unlike for RPA, we have something called PDD, right? For agent, we have something called agent definition document, ADD. Okay, we'll show you an example of how agent definition document looks like. So this is how it looks like. So you can use this template for your agentic process automation. You can mention the agent name here. Then you could write who's created. You can write version related things. You can write who created this and then who changed it, and then all key contacts. And under purpose of document, you can quickly mention like what this document is about, and under prerequisites, you could mention what access do we need, and who is going to give the sign off, and then test data availability, and high level process metrics like what is the high level description, the frequency, and the number of processed items, average handling time per transaction. So all these details, and the actual agent related information starts from here. Agent story, like the quick story of what your agent does. If you have a business flow diagram, you can add this, and functional requirements, step by step functional requirements. At the end, you could check this template. It's available in UiPath Academy itself. You could download and then you can go through. The main part comes here, like prompts. So what will be your system prompt? What will be your user prompt? If you have a context with you, what is the context? Is it type? If you have guardrails, I'll explain what is context and then what are guardrails when in during the demo section. If you have any tools included, then what's the name of the tool and type of the tool, and different RPA tools, or if you include one more agent into existing agent automation, you could mention the agent tool name as well. And if you have escalations, then what is this type of escalation, and then who is it has to be assigned to. So basically in a node scope. So there are few common elements that are common for PDD as well. Like for RPA, we have PDD, right? So there are few similarities. Apart from these, we have agent related things like prompts, system, I mean escalations, tools, etc. So you could adapt this. If you have, if you in your enterprise, if you are already started using agentic automation, this should be a best document as a start, right? So now let's go to UiPath Orchestrator. So I'm going to build this agent using Studio Web. So go to Orchestrator and then go to Studio Web and click on this arrow. And here you should see different types of things that I can do in Studio Web. So you could create an RPA workflow, you could create an API workflow, you can create agentic process directly here. And so currently I'm going to build an agent, right? So I'll take agent. So if you see here, once you click on agent, this is not actually just a agent. It is actually we are building a solution. It's a complete solution. Once you click on agent, you would see the a pop-up asking for selection, agent type selection. So autonomous agent, this is what we are creating now. So if agent has to act independently to complete a simple given task, then autonomous agent will be your type, your selection type. If you want to build an assistant kind of thing, like just like how we discussed about autopilot, if you want a conversational agent or something, then you could select conversational agent and then start. If you have already a coded agent, like you built an agent using any IDE, Visual Code or something, and you want that coded agent to be imported, then you could select this one, and then you could import your coded agent directly to here. So I'll select autonomous. So if you have specific task, and if you don't know, if you're struggling with user prompt or system prompt, you don't have to worry. You can quickly describe what your agent need to do in 2 or 3 lines, and then you can type it here, and then you can click on generate agent. It will automatically generate system prompt, user prompt, and everything. And upon that, you can just tailor it according to your needs, and then you can work on it, right? So for now, I'm going to start fresh. So I'll click on start fresh. So once you click on start fresh, you would see a playground kind, just like how we had studio flow space, right? So just like that, we have a flow space here. So there are two types now which you can view. So one is canvas. This is advanced. It looks very cool. And the other one is the old type, which is form. So you could click on form, and then here you would see a different view. Both are same, just the view are different. So I'll go with canvas. So in the right side, you see the agent, and then the definition, which is this part now, which we opened, and then evaluation. So once you create an agent, you want to test it against a test cases, right? So here test cases are evaluation sets. So you could create test cases, and you could create evaluators also. I'll explain you once we start building the agent when I come there. And as I mentioned, this is not just an agent creating space. This is actually we're building a solution here, so you could add any other tools as well to the existing solution. Let's say you want to add an RPA workflow. You could just click on plus and then click on RPA workflow, and then that would add RPA workflow to your solution. So in our current use case, we don't need any RPA workflow, so I'm just deleting it. So we'll go back to agent. So for agent, we need to first select the model. So these are the different available models. It's suggested you could select the suggested ones. So I'll select OpenAI GPT 5.4. And then if you don't have any complex scenarios in your agent, you could select standard harness. If you have multi-step reasoning, you could select advanced harness. So for now, it's a simple agent, so I'm just selecting standard harness and system prompt and user prompt. System prompt is where you define what your agent has to do step by step. What is its goal, or what it needs to take from user, and what it needs to perform. So all this uh, agent related things you put it in system prompt. So for this use case, so I'm giving this as a system prompt. Like I'm quickly telling that who you are. Agent should be event research assistant, and its role. The role is to find suitable team building activities in a given city. So I'm going to give the city as an input for specified group size. Focus on corporate and professional group activities, and for the given number of participants. For each activity, provide a title, brief summary. So here I'm defining how the output should look like. Right? I'll copy this. You could use ChatGPT to generate system prompt, or you could use autopilot here. You click on autopilot. Here you could ask anything. So if you want a system prompt, you could directly ask like give me system prompt for business research assistant or agent, right? And this would give you, and then you can directly copy it. That's my system prompt. User prompt is something what it expects from user, right? So here in this case, it will expect a city name and then the group size, right? As we defined here. So it should take city and number of people that are doing the activity. So, so this is my user prompt that I defined. So it has to search team building activities in the city. So if we give any word in developer answers, it will consider it as this as a argument. So this has to come from user, right? So that's why it is included in double flower brackets, right? Also number of people. So this would be my user prompt, and it has to list in this way, like at a title, a brief summary, and then the maximum recommended code size. Copy this into user prompt. It shows these two as in red. So these were not declared. So the arguments are not declared, right? We will come to that. So we're done with user prompt. So to adjust the creativity, like how differently it has to reply for each time, you could adjust temperature for it. So how many number of maximum tokens it has to respond, and then how many iterations that has to do. You could control that under model settings, right? So guardrails is nothing but some evaluators. So if you want to add, if you want to check at each run, if you want to check there if there is a PI data given to the agent, you could add such kind of evaluators from here. You could click on add guardrails, and you could see there is PI detection and prompt injection. You could quickly click on it, and then you could add this guardrail to your existing agent, right? So for now, we're not going to add any guardrail. So that's about the agent parameters. And now let's see how do we give an arguments to here. So here we have something called data manager. So you have to declare these variables, and then where do you do that? We have data manager, and then here you could declare the variables, input and output arguments, right? And once you're done, you could see the issues with it. Let's say input city is not available. That's one issue, and number of people also is not declared. So that's why these two are issues in my current agent. You could see all issues here. And if you start deploying your agent, you could see all the previous versions as well here in version tab. And once you're done, you could start deployment here from the deployment manager. Go back, definition. And then here, if you in the right side, if you see, this is like properties panel. So for agent, if I click this will be gone. And if you click again, you will get properties related to the agent. And this is where you see the output once we start debugging. And this is watches panel. Here, let's say you have a argument or variable, and you want to see the runtime value of that argument or variable. You could see that in watches panel. And as we already know, this is autopilot. You could use this at any time. And we'll see health score at the end. But once we define the prompt, it will show how well is your prompt and what could you change to make it better, right? So we define system and user prompts, but it is failing because the arguments or variables are not declared. So I'll copy city. City has to be an input, right? So add a property. Property name should be city, and it's string. You could quickly write a description as well. So as and when I created, you see it turned into red or green. The number of people as well. So also should be an input. There's also a string. That's it. We created two inputs. We're done with the agent creation. So usually in any of the software development, or let's say if you want to create an automation as well using UiPath, so immediately after building, what will you do? We will test it, right? We'll test it against some test cases. So here, unlike in traditional automation, we have test cases. Here we have something called evolution sets. So evolution sets is something which you want to test your agent against, right? So by default, there'll be evolution set. You can create one if needed, or you could generate also a new evolution set by simply typing some prompt. So I'm using default evolution set. I'm clicking on view results. So here I could add evolutions to the evolution set, and then every time when I run an agent, it will run against these test sets. I'll add to the set. I'll name it test one. So I'll give a sample for my evolution set 5. Click on save. This is my one evolution set. For this, so accordingly you have to write output as well. And before that, let's go to definition again, and then we will start debugging it. Ideally, we didn't configure any tools or context. So let's see how it will. So let's see how will it will interact, or how will it will run without tools and context. Click 5, and then click on 7 debug. Could see the execution trial here. Have one evolution set, right, that we defined. So the run has been finished. Just do this, and then see here. So without tools as well, we could see some output, because it is anyway it's going to use LLM, right? So that's why it is directly running. So now let's say you want to use Google. Let's say you want to do the research based on current available data. So what happens now? LLM will be trained on some data, right? So it would use that data to provide you output. But in general cases, you want to have latest data, right? So if you want to have latest data, then it's better to have a tool that is doing web search, right? How do we add a tool? So if you come back to design, so here you're seeing escalations, context, and tools, right? So tools, context, and escalation. So how do we add a tool? You just go to tools and then click on plus, and here you will see all available tools. So for now, we need web search tool, right? Click on web search, and that would add web search tool. So you have to create a connector for generative AI activities. So in my case, I've already created. So if you want to know how to create, you just close this. This is how it will look for you. You can just click on connection, and then here you could click on connect, and then the next step is to add your credentials, and then that would create a connector. So I'm just selecting the one which I've created already. So I don't want to create any guardrail as of now. So I'm fine now. And if I want to create one more tool, just click on plus again. So for me, one more tool would be web summary. So once it does the research, I need a proper summary instead of lot of output, right? So I'll use web summary for it. And again, the connector, that would add the two tools, right? And if I have, if my agent has to run on organization related data, on specific data, it should not use general available data. Then how do we do that? We have something called context. So context is nothing but you give a connector to your local database, to your enterprise organization data. So every time when agent runs, it uses this data instead of general available data. So how do you add that? Click on context, and then here you will create an index. UiPath orchestrator, we have something called storage bucket. So you create a connector to your storage bucket, which is called as index, and then that index you will select here. In further videos, we're going to develop some complex agents. In those, we would see what exactly and how do we create the index as well. Now I'm deleting it, and that's it. I think we are good here. Now let's debug again. So I'm giving same input, London and 5. Just closing this. Make sure we could actually see it here. So the run has been finished, and then here you can see the title, the summary, and then the maximum group size, right? You can use this data and then you can further process it. You can make an Excel out of it, or however you need the output, you can alter it, because since this is a JSON, you could play with it. One more thing, during the debug, you could already see a tool simulator here. So why, how, I mean, how is it used? So instead of, so every time when you test your agent, it will run against the actual live data, right? If you don't want that, if you want to make simulate runs before happening the actual runs, you could just toggle the simulate for these two tools that I have, and you can just save and debug. This would not run against the real agent. It will run in simulate environment. So now the agent run is done, and then you could check the output again. So we created an evolution set, right? We didn't define output though, but then we just created an input for this. So from the agent run, let's say if I want to add this output to my evolutions, I could just quickly go to execution trial, and then you could add this output to your evolution set. So I'll just click on add to evolution set. So this is my input, and this is how it generated. So if you're fine with this output, you could add this directly. If you want, you can modify this further, and then you can give. Clicking on save, you can see this trace has been successfully added to evolution set. And if you could quickly go to evolutions, and then you see there is one from agent run. So now this is evolution set, but this evolution set is running on a evolutor, right? So what is that evolutor? So you could see what are the evolutors that are available. So for now we have a default evolutor, which is categorized as LLM as judge. Could quickly open it. You can add your own evolutor as well. So I'm currently using default evolutor. So categories, you can see LLM as judge, deterministic, and trajectory. So deterministic is nothing but if you have specific format that is required. Let's say you want give a specific JSON. So if you want to make it that similarity, JSON similarity and semantic similarity, then you could use deterministic. If not, you could by default you can use LLM as judge. Sorry, just leave it as it is. If you want for evolutions, if you want to use a different model, you could use. I'm using same as agent, and you could adjust the prompt as well for evolutor. So this is my evolutor prompt. As an expert evaluator, analyze the semantic similarity of these JSON contents to determine a score from 0 to 100. And then what it needs to check title, and what we'll have under title. The title will be potential group of activity, and summary of that activity, and then maximum group size that we can do on that activity. I'll give that prompt in evaluator. Then let's go back to definition again, and then let's quickly run it. So kept simulate enabled. It's done again. I could see different output now. I could see for each for every tool you should see, you're seeing simulated result, like it is happening for a simulated environment, not an actual. If you don't want to make actual tool call, you can use the simulated, and then it'll do the simulation instead of actual. So now we're done designing a simple research assistant. So if you want to deploy this, you can go to deployment configuration. I could quickly see what we're going to deploy as part of this solution folder. So I have a generative activity and its connection. I could name this connection as well if I require. So I'll click on publish. If you want to give it in shared environment, you can use shared. If not, if it is only for you, then you could select for me and then click on publish. You can see publish is in progress. And under version tab, you could see what is the current version. Anytime when you deploy a different version, you could always roll back, right? So now it's been deployed. You could click on check automation. Now see under my space, its solution has been deployed. You can click on go to folder to see go to that specific folder. This is my solution 9. If you rename this agent, the solution package, like you can quickly right click and then rename it, and then you can deploy with different name as well. This is my agent. If I go to automations, you should be able to see the agent that I've created. So if I want to run, I can just quickly make it run. London 5. Click on start. You could see traces here as well. So here the actual runs are happening. So there we enabled simulate, right? So that would be a simulate one. So here you could see the actual tool call is happening. For web search, you might not find much differences about this simulated and then the normal one. In case if you have an RPA workflow and you don't want to run this RPA workflow every time when you test your agent, at that time the simulate will work better and it would be better to understand. And you can see the agent output. Okay, let's get back to our agenda again. So in module 1, we understood why we had to introduce AI agents or agentic automation. We understood what is an AI agent with a real world example. We explored agent creation or types of agents in one specific platform called UiPath. And then and we had a simple use case. And then for that use case, we created a end-to-end agentic automation solution. So that's it for today. Thank you for joining us. If you found this video helpful, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more exciting UiPath content.